welcome to Medafe. So today we will be discussing about the edema, and these notes are taken from the Harrison. So we will be thoroughly discussing about the edema, the medicine part. Okay, so the first topic that comes in the edema is the plasma and the interstitial fluid. So we can divide our body into two parts: intracellular part and extracellular part. The intracellular part is of 2/3 and the extracellular part is 1/3. We are more concerned about the extracellular part. Now we can divide the extracellular part into plasma and interstitial fluid. The plasma consists of 1/4 of the extracellular, and the remaining part is the interstitial fluid. Now the exchange of the fluid from the plasma to the interstitial fluid can be by several mechanisms. So the first pressure that is working there is the hydrostatic pressure. Okay, this hydrostatic pressure is generated because of the velocity of the flowing blood. That is, you can see here, this flowing blood pushes the wall between the plasma and the interstitial fluid, and this pressure applied by the fluid is called as hydrostatic pressure. Now this hydrostatic pressure in capillaries, where it is max, where the arteries are divided into further small branches like arterioles. Okay, and it decreases as we move away from the arteries. Okay, so this is highest here, and then it is gradually decreasing. The hydrostatic, other than hydrostatic pressure, there is certain more forces that are working there. So one is the colloid oncotic pressure. This colloid oncotic pressure is there because of the protein present in the interstitial fluid. This colloid oncotic pressure is also present in the plasma. Okay, so the colloid oncotic pressure, the protein that are present in the plasma is attracting the fluid towards them. Okay, so this force here, I hope you can see this marking. So this force is applied against the plasma, and it is preventing the plasma to go in the interstitial fluid, and this pressure here is working towards the interstitial fluid, and it is working to get the plasma out of the capillaries towards the interstitial fluid. Okay, so these two forces are working here, and most of the oncotic pressure in the plasma is mediated by the albumin. Okay, this here, the barrier on which all the forces are working is called as capillary endothelial barrier, and there are certain mechanisms by which edema develops, and we will be talking about it later in this video. Okay, now once the fluid is transferred from the plasma to the interstitial fluid, what is the mechanism by which it will be again transported back to the plasma? So the mechanism is simply the lymphatics. Okay, lymphatics are the channels that brings this extra fluid that is there in the interstitial fluid again back to the plasma. Now, why the edema is developing? What are the reasons behind this developing edema? So, first of all, what is edema? Edema is the excess fluid from the intravascular compartment. Excess of fluid from intravascular compartment is being transported to the interstitial chamber, interstitial fluid. Okay, so what are the conditions in which this is occurring? Okay, so there are 5 conditions that are given in the Harrison. We will be talking about them one by one. So first condition is this. First condition is this: the hydrostatic pressure of the blood. When hydrostatic pressure is increased, there can be development of the edema. Okay. The second one is here: if there is inadequate lymphatics, then there will be no proper transport of the fluid from the interstitial fluid again back to the plasma, and then that can also develop the edema. Okay. The third one is here: if the oncotic pressure inside the plasma decreases, then that can also develop edema. The fourth one is here: if the capillary endothelial barrier breaks, then the more of the fluid will go into the interstitial fluid, and that will develop edema. Okay, and the fifth and last one is the, if this colloid oncotic pressure increases, then there will be more pulling force, and this pulling force will pull more of the fluid in the interstitial fluid, and that will be causing edema. Okay, and now the next heading that is that came under the edema, that is a reduction of the effective arterial volume. So the effective arterial volume, what is effective arterial blood volume? It is a parameter that is used, that gives us the idea about the filling of the arterial tree. Okay, and blood volume, that is effectively perfusing the tissue. Okay, so that is effective arterial volume. Now suppose if there is edema, okay, this edema is causing the fluid to come out to the extracellular compartment, okay, to come out to the interstitial fluid. Okay, now if this fluid came out in the interstitial fluid, there will be more of the liquid will be out from the arteries. Because of this, there will be decrease in the volume. Decrease in the volume causes decrease in the effective arterial blood volume. Okay, we have already talked about the what is the effective arterial blood volume. So what can be the other causes of the effective arterial blood volume decrease other than the edema? There can be decrease in the cardiac output. There can be systemic vascular resistance, and if albumin decreases, now if albumin decreases, the oncotic pressure, the colloid oncotic pressure, the colloid oncotic pressure, that is pulling the fluid again back in the plasma and resisting the outward movement of the fluid, will be decreased. So there will be edema. Okay. And now what will be the response of this all this decrease in the effective arterial blood volume? The response will be renal retention of this sodium. Our kidneys will try to retain more of the sodium. As water follows the sodium, there will be more reabsorption of the water, that will increase the volume. Okay, as if we retain sodium, the water will follow this, and there will be increase in the volume of blood, and we should be happy, but we will not, because increase in volume will cause increase in edema. Okay, now we will talk about the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. When effective flow decreases, renal blood flow also decreases. This decrease in the renal blood flow causes the glomerular cells to release the renin. What is juxtaglomerular cells? They are specialized myoepithelial cells, and they are found surrounding the afferent arteriole. Okay, how to remember the afferent and efferent? Afferent is the arrival. So afferent, wherever there is afferent word, afferent means the structure is coming towards the reference point. Okay, afferent is arrival, efferent is exit. So this specialized myoepithelial cells, these JG cells, and this is the common structure, or you can say this is the common mechanism by which JG cells releases renin. This myoepithelial cells, suppose this is the afferent arteriole, है ना? And these are the myoepithelial cells that are present around it. Okay, these are JG cells. Okay, and the blood is flowing through this afferent arteriole. Now suppose there is decrease in the volume of blood coming in the afferent arteriole. Then what will happen? This wall will become like this. Okay. Now this inward movement of these JG cells will activate the release of renin. Okay. Now suppose if there is more of the volume is coming in the afferent arteriole, the movement will now occur outwards. Okay. the cells will be like this, and this will stop the release of renin if there is any process that is going on. Okay, so increase in the volume causes no secretion of the renin, and decrease in the volume causes the secretion of the renin, and this is why there is myoepithelial cells. Myoepithelial cells are the JG cells. Okay, now the increased renin release. What is renin? Is the enzyme, and it is having a molecular mass of 40,000 daltons, and as it is enzyme, we need a substrate. Okay, and the substrate here is the angiotensinogen. What is angiotensinogen? Angiotensinogen is the alpha 2 globulin that is synthesized by the liver. Okay, now this angiotensinogen is being converted to angiotensin. What is angiotensin? Angiotensin is the decapeptide. Okay, and this angiotensin 1 will further be converted by the into the angiotensin 2 by the angiotensin converting enzyme. Okay, what is angiotensin 2? It is a octapeptide. Okay, and now this angiotensin 2 is having generalized vasoconstricting properties. So because of this property, this works on the efferent arterioles. Okay, and as it works on the efferent arterioles, it will decrease the hydrostatic pressure in the peritubular capillaries. Now here is a important concept that you must know, that if there is constriction of the efferent arterioles, the hydrostatic pressure in the peritubular capillaries are decreasing. Why? Okay, that we will be discussing just now. Now what are the other effect that will be there because of this angiotensin 2? That there will be increase in the filtration fraction. Okay, and this will cause increase in the colloid osmotic pressure in the vessels, and this will cause increase in salt and water reabsorption. Okay, where are the places where this will be increased? It is PCT and ascending limb. So how this mechanism is working? First, let's see how the filtration fraction is increasing. Okay, so here is our glomerulus. This is afferent arteriole and this is efferent arteriole. We are saying that will be constriction of the efferent arteriole. Okay, because of the angiotensin 2. This constriction will cause more of the filtration in the glomerulus. Okay, this more of the filtration, so this is called as increase in the filtration fraction. Now because of the more of the filtration of the water, the colloid osmotic pressure here, the relative concentration of the proteins and other material will be increased here. Okay, so because of this there will be more of the inward movement of the plasma, and there will be more of the reabsorption where in the PCT and ascending limb. Okay, so again let me revise it quickly. See, if efferent arterioles is constricted, okay, and this is our afferent arteriole, and this is the amount of blood that is going in the glomeruli. So more of the because of this constriction there will be more of the blood that will be filtered. Okay, and because of this filtration there will be only, see, protein cannot be filtered out from the glomeruli. Okay, so what will be filtered out here? There will be plasma and more of the water. Okay, so water will be filtered out here. Okay, now because of this the relative concentration of the protein and other material will increase in this part. Okay, so the blood going in now. The peritubular capillary will be made from after the continuation of the efferent arteriole, right? So now this blood which is going in the efferent arteriole, now the peritubular capillaries are having more of the proteins, okay, and less of the water. Okay, so now this will cause the water from the PCT and the ascending limb to go towards the capillary. So more of the reabsorption of the water will be there. Okay, now the second thing, that is important thing that is written here, and that is saying that if there is constriction of the efferent arteriole, there will be decrease in the hydrostatic pressure in the peritubular capillaries. How this is happening? See, there is constriction of the efferent arteriole, not the peritubular capillaries. Okay. Now, because of this constriction of the efferent arterioles, the amount of blood that is going in the peritubular capillaries will be decreased. Okay. Now the amount of blood is decreased, and this, see, amount of blood is decreased. Okay. So the hydrostatic pressure is the pressure that is applied by the blood on the walls of the capillaries. So the hydrostatic pressure will further be decreased. Are you getting my point? If you are not getting my point, you can DM us your doubts. Okay. The same thing is happening. Now suppose if we dilate the efferent arteriole, okay, dilation of the efferent arteriole will cause more of the blood to go in the peritubular capillaries. More of the blood means more of the pressure, and that will increase the hydrostatic pressure in the peritubular capillaries. So this is how peritubular capillaries work. The hydrostatic pressure will decrease when there is constriction of the efferent arteriole. Okay. The RAS system is both hormonal and paracrine system, and if we block the conversion of angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, and if we block the angiotensin receptors, we can actually decrease the edema, because that will cause less absorption of the sodium and the water. Okay, as this is what I have written here. Because RAS causes increase in the sodium and water absorption, that will causes edema. If we block this system, there will be increase in the excretion of the sodium ion and water, and that will be decreasing the edema. Okay. Now, what are the other effects that are shown by this angiotensin 2? When this angiotensin 2 goes in the systemic circulation, it will increase the production of the aldosterone, where the aldosterone is increasing the production of aldosterone in the adrenal cortex. Which part of the adrenal cortex? That is zona glomerulosa. Okay. Now, this what is the function of the aldosterone? The function is the increase in the sodium reabsorption. Okay. Now, increase in the sodium reabsorption and potassium excretion. Where? From the collecting tubule. Okay. Now, if there is increase in the sodium reabsorption, it will favor the edema formation. More of the sodium, more of the water, more of the edema. Okay. If we block this aldosterone, we can actually decrease the edema. How we will be decreasing the edema? The aldosterone will be blocked, sodium reabsorption will be blocked, edema will be stopped. What are the drugs that can help us to block this aldosterone? Spironolactone, eplerenone, and amiloride. Okay. Now the next topic that is come under the edema is the arginine vasopressin. Okay. As the osmolar concentration increases intracellularly, there will be release of arginine vasopressin from the posterior pituitary gland. Okay. Osmolar concentration increases, that will cause for release of the arginine vasopressin from the posterior pituitary gland, and in response to the increase in the osmolar concentration. Okay. So this arginine vasopressin that I have written is AVP will work on the V2 receptors, and this will increase the reabsorption of water in distal tubule and collecting duct. Okay. So what? See, osmolar concentration is increasing. That means there is less of water and more of the solutes. Okay. So if we want to decrease the osmolarity of the blood, we have to, sorry, if we want to decrease the intracellular osmolar concentration, we have to give more of the fluid. Okay. And to give more of the fluid, the body works by releasing the arginine vasopressin, the AVP. This AVP will work on the V2 receptor, and this will increase the reabsorption of the water in the distal tubule and the collecting duct. That will increase the total body water, And now if total body water is increased, there will be contribute in the edema formation. Okay, what are the other stimuli that can increase the secretion of the arginine vasopressin? That is decrease in the effective arterial volume. What is effective arterial volume? We have already discussed about it. Okay, and what are the causes? The most important cause is the heart failure. So because of the heart failure, there will be decrease in the effective arterial volume, and that will cause the release of arginine vasopressin, AVP. So how we will be checking if AVP is increased due to osmolarity or other causes? Simple, if you correct the osmolarity, there will be decrease in the AVP. Okay, so this is because of the osmolarity, and if it is not decreased even now, this is maybe because of the other reasons. Okay, now comes the endothelin 1. This endothelin 1 is secreted by the endothelial cells, and this is secreted in the severe heart failure. Okay, so the severe heart failure will cause increase in the endothelin 1, and this will cause renal vasoconstriction, sodium retention, and edema. All three things can be seen when there is release of the endothelin 1. Now